Welcome to This Explainer. Today we are completely peeling back the diplomatic curtain on U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's recent visit to India. Now, if you've been casually watching the news, you might think this is just, another routine handshake. But today, we're going to uncover the hidden economic engines, specifically when it comes to energy and defense, that are actually driving global politics right now. So we have to ask, why is America really visiting India? The official headlines, they focus heavily on trade, tech, and the Quad meetings over in New Delhi. But there is a much, much deeper story here. Let's dive right in and uncover the massive energy and defense motives that are lurking just beneath the surface of all those official press releases. Here's exactly what we're going to cover today. 1. Rubio's diplomatic visit. 2. India's massive energy needs. 3. The global oil shift. 4. America's Venezuela strategy. And finally, 5. The Apache defense deal. Starting with Section 1, Rubio's diplomatic visit, or what we're calling the diplomatic surface. Look, if we just check out the surface optics, the context surrounding these Quad meetings is incredibly turbulent. India was originally supposed to host the summit in 2024, but President Biden ended up hosting it in the U.S. instead. Then, a planned 2025 visit by Trump was totally canceled amid rising tensions. So Rubio actually landing in Kolkata ahead of the 2026 meetings, that represents a really high-stakes attempt to stabilize a massive, massive geopolitical partnership.
Let's move to Section 2, India's massive energy needs. This is the first layer of the iceberg.
To find out what's really bringing the U.S. to the table, we have to drop below that surface diplomacy. The reality is, India is almost entirely dependent on foreign oil. They import a staggering 90% of their supply. We're talking roughly 5 million barrels entering the country every single day. That is an absolute ocean of oil, just to keep the nation running.
And that dependency, it is only going to skyrocket. Right now, daily consumption sits around 5.8 million barrels. But as the Indian economy rapidly expands, that need jumps to 6.8 million by 2030 and a projected 9.1 million barrels per day by 2050. Their need to buy oil is massive, it's permanent, and it's growing fast.
And here is exactly where the immediate geopolitical opportunity lies. India currently requires about 5.2 million barrels per day just to function smoothly, but they're only receiving 4.9 million. That 8% supply gap, which is a shortage of roughly 300,000 barrels a day, creates the absolute perfect opening for a strategic partner to step in and lock down a highly lucrative, long-term market. Which brings us to Section 3, the global oil shift, the second layer of the iceberg. Global conflicts have completely upended who actually supplies all this oil to India. Before the recent crises, Russia and Saudi Arabia were leading the pack, but look at the current reality. Saudi Arabia has plummeted all the way to 4th place. The UAE has surged to 2nd, and incredibly, Venezuela, a country that wasn't even in the top 10 just 9 months ago, has rocketed straight into the top 3. So how in the world did this happen? Well, it was a total domino effect. First, conflicts bottlenecked the Strait of Hormuz, which forced Saudi oil into much longer, more expensive routes. Second, the UAE bypassed OPEC's production limits by using the Fujairah port, which sits conveniently right outside the strait, to pump more oil. And finally, with a supply gap still lingering, the back door swung wide open for cheap Venezuelan crude to just flood the Indian market. Now for Section 4, America's Venezuela strategy, the third layer of the iceberg. Okay, this is where Marco Rubio's visit truly starts to make sense. Leading up to his arrival, the explicit message sent to New Delhi was literally, "We will sell all the energy India wants." The U.S. wants to step in and fill that massive energy deficit, and the timing? That's no coincidence. Rubio's discussions perfectly overlap with the upcoming visit of Venezuela's acting president to India. And here is the big twist. Because the U.S. established strong, direct control over Venezuela's administration back in January, Venezuelan oil is now effectively functioning as American-managed oil. Plus, India possesses these highly specialized refineries that are perfectly suited for processing this heavy, hard-to-refine Venezuelan crude. It's quite literally a match made in heaven when it comes to supply and processing capability. So, while the rest of the world looks at conflicts in the Middle East and just sees a crisis, America actually sees a strategic masterstroke. By controlling Venezuelan output, the U.S. can step right in, fill India's 8% supply deficit, and push toward a massive economic goal, selling $5 billion of Venezuelan oil to the global market every single month. India is the ultimate key to unlocking that kind of revenue. All right, Section 5, the Apache defense deal. This is the final layer of the iceberg. Because it's not just about oil, right? It's also about incredibly lucrative long-term defense relationships. Now, the U.S. has already successfully sold hardware to India. Between 2015 and 2019, India spent $2 billion acquiring 28 highly advanced Apache helicopters, plus howitzer artillery. But the U.S. isn't just in the business of selling hardware anymore. Rubio's objective right now is to secure the ongoing mandatory servicing and support packages for these multi-million-dollar machines. That's where the real money is. This is a deeply calculated four-step playbook to essentially replace Russia as India's primary defense partner. Step 1, supply the world's most advanced equipment. Step 2, have that equipment deployed at strategic borders, like with China. Step 3, transition from that initial one-off sale to a mandatory servicing package. And Step 4, secure a long-term, inescapable dependency on American defense contractors to keep that military hardware running. Ultimately, modern diplomacy isn't just about friendly photos or abstract alliances. When we look at Rubio's visit, especially right on the heels of recent trips to India by Iranian officials, the real truth emerges. The engine of international relations is built almost entirely on securing vital energy supply chains and locking down multi-billion-dollar defense servicing rights. Which brings us to the end of our explainer. And I really want to leave you with this provocative thought to consider today. As nations leverage these global crises to secure massive energy pipelines and unbreakable defense monopolies, who is truly steering the future of global power? Is it the politicians shaking hands on the surface, or the massive economic engines running deep, deep below? Thanks so much for joining me, and always remember to look beneath the surface.